As you know, former President Donald Trump is continuing on the campaign trail, using his legal troubles to advance his position in the presidential race. Trump made history when he was indicted for the third time in 4 months. His latest indictment charges him with 4 felony counts for allegedly attempting to overturn the 2020 election and attempting to block the peaceful transfer of power. He pleaded not guilty to all of the charges, and we want to break down the legal aspects of this latest indictment and the other cases. We want to welcome back to this program this morning Nelson Cunningham. He's a former assistant U.S. attorney under Rudolph Giuliani. He was the general counsel of the Senate Judiciary Committee under then Chairman Joe Biden, and former special counsel advisor to President Bill Clinton, currently the vice president and co-founder of McClarty Associates. Nelson, it's good to have you back at the desk.
Great to be here. Thank you.
You know, in the past, we had kind of talked about crossing the T's and dotting the I's of these federal investigations, but we're past this point now where the indictments have been handed down. I wanted to start just basically on your experience on where we are in history right now of the indictments. Are we in uncharted water here as far as, not that these charges have never been brought before, but against who they've been brought, a former president of the United States?
There's no question. We are in uncharted waters. These are the first indictments to be brought against a former president, not to mention a current presidential candidate. That's another whole other unprecedented piece of this. What we're going to see coming up, we've got 3 trial proceedings coming up. There may be a 4th any day now if Georgia acts. You're going to see Donald Trump, you're going to see judges in 4 different jurisdictions trying to maneuver what ought to be a normal set of proceedings, pretrial motions, appearances, witness hearings, appeals, with one of the most famous people in the world and one of the busiest people in the world. How they do this, how they try to ensure fair proceedings, how they try to ensure a fair trial, how they try to ensure that these trials are set on dates that you can actually hold them without interfering with the political process. We've never had to face this before.
When you look at the 4 charges, how are they interconnected, and why did all 4 of these needed to be brought in tandem?
Well, I'd say that the fact that they're being brought, in a 4 or 5 month period is more a fact of just it takes time to investigate a complex white-collar crime. It just takes time. President Trump said the other day, gee, they could have brought these cases 2.5 years ago. Well, no, you couldn't. 2.5 years ago, the events had just occurred. It takes time. Prosecutors, grand juries, it's methodical, it's hard work. You get the documents, you question the witnesses, you build the case, you move up the chain. It takes time. These cases are actually almost entirely unrelated. 2 of them are related. That's the one that we've just seen charged about the Electoral Count Act. The other one about the Georgia calls is related. They're all about the 2020 election. The other 2 have nothing to do with that. One of them is about Trump's conduct before he became president.
That would be the Stormy Daniels.
The Stormy Daniels one. Yeah. And the other charges about what he did after he was president, which is the classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. So you've got, it's actually kind of we're going to get a picture of Donald Trump over a period of years. Before he was president, while he was president, and then since he's been president.
That's a good way to frame this. Let's talk about the charges in this latest indictment. Conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. A lot of people probably watched the second impeachment of Donald Trump. How much does this federal indictment, this latest one, and we need to be clear which one we're talking about here, mirror the case that we saw brought by the Democratic managers in the second impeachment?
Yeah. It relates to the same time period, but it's got a different focus. The focus of the House committee, of the impeachment committee, was on the insurrection at the Capitol, was on the invasion of the Capitol, in part because this affected the members of Congress personally. They were escorted under heavy security out of the building. Their lives may have been threatened. Jack Smith has decided, the prosecutor in this federal case has decided not to charge Trump with inciting violence at the Capitol. This is not about the violence at the Capitol. This is about a complex scheme that unrolled over a period of weeks after the election in 7 states to create false slates of electors in 7 states, to have them meet secretly on the date in the Constitution in those 7 states, and to put together fraudulent certification that these were the legitimate electors.
One of the things we've already heard in the short time from Trump attorneys is that as president of the United States and as a candidate for president, that Trump had a right under the First Amendment to make political statements. Where do you draw the line in a court of law, though, between a political statement and a false statement?
Well, what the indictment says, yes, the First Amendment gives people the right to say what they want to say, and especially political figures. Makes that clear. But then the indictment lays out a series in 7 different states where Trump would call a senior official and he would say, I hear that 10,000 dead people voted. And the senior official there would say, no, that didn't happen. And then Trump would go out and say, 10,000 dead people voted. So Smith has put together a list of places where Trump was told, no, this is not true, and where Trump then went and said, no, it's true.
Real quick, we have about 30 seconds. There are about a half a dozen unindicted co-conspirators in this. What is the likelihood that they have been offered deals to provide testimony in exchange for not being charged, or depending on what their testimony is, could criminal charges for those unindicted co-conspirators be down the line?
Any of the above is possible. And I'd say there are 6 of them. I'd say for some of them, it's highly likely that they will plead, plea bargain. Others will never plea bargain.
Nelson Cunningham, we appreciate your time. Always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you.
Back at this desk. We appreciate
Thanks very
you.
much.